They turn the pod back to face the ship so that Hal can see them. Why? Planets and who knows what are whizzing past him at increasingly great speed while he's like... Hello lovely people, my name is Emma, welcome back to my channel and welcome if you are new. Today I am taking you on an adventure to the far-flung future, the year 2001. I've so enjoyed doing these recaps of movies and trailers and things that I just really wanted to do one about a film I love, and I have fixated on no film more than 2001: A Space Odyssey, although I will say the only comment I remember from when I mentioned it being my favourite film is somebody being like, she's so basic. I'm not just basic, baby, I'm film student basic. I wrote a whole ass essay about the cinematography of one scene in 2001: A Space Odyssey. However, you are saved from that level of intensity, shall we say, because today I'm just going to recap for you the events of the movie, the plot, the people. 2001 is a timeless classic, but it is 2.5 hours long. A lot of people haven't seen it and want to know what the heck is going on with this cult classic. A lot of people have seen it but only really remember the avant-garde, the particularly cinematic moments, space baby, and they forget that there is actually a cohesive linear plot. There are characters. They have names and everything. So 2001 superfan Emma Thorne is here to save the day by running down the plot for you. Last time I wore a funny t-shirt, people got upset because they couldn't read the whole thing, so for you folks, this is the Silly Little Idiot Club shirt, which I am already sweating in. As noted, I am a bit of a superfan, so I'll be giving you some fun facts as we go. Now, many of you may not be aware, but one of the unique and interesting things about 2001: A Space Odyssey is that the script for the movie was written alongside the book by Stanley Kubrick and Arthur C. Clarke. In fact, did you know there are 4 Space Odyssey books? Because I didn't. Fake fan right here. As you can see, I am now in the far-flung year of 3001, so I know all the happy haps. Don't even worry. So there are some interesting differences between the book and the movie. Mostly it's just stuff that couldn't be made realistic enough for the film. Kubrick went so hard on those space shots you don't even understand. So anytime they couldn't make an initial shot from the script of the book look realistic enough, that changed for the movie. There were also a couple of small places where Kubrick and Clarke disagreed on things. Interestingly, the second book retcons the first book to match the movie facts. Clarke actually says to take every book kind of separately because it's almost like you can read it like a multiverse, you know? Like these are different, each one is the same plot and the same characters in a slightly different parallel universe. Because he, again, retconned and updated the book per the latest science in every one, per changes in the movie. I find that so interesting. Anyway, the reason I mention this is because I find that film fanatics fall into more or less 2 categories. You have those who prefer the mystery, those who like to have their speculations go unresolved, to enjoy a film at face value and go, that was weird, what was going on there? And then there are people who want to know everything. If there is an obscure comic book or song reference or a weird website that they released alongside the movie that snuck some context in, I must know everything. I kind of exist in both. I like to theorize and I want to know every detail, but I also really enjoy the mystery, and I think some things are best left unresolved. I swear to God, Rings of Power, if you give Tom Bombadil a backstory, I will be very cross. That all being said, I have a solution to make everybody happy. I will be filling in the story with some little tidbits from the book that don't particularly add plot or explain anything. So if you want to keep the mystery alive, then you are safe. But I will mention when the book has a more detailed explanation for something, and then at the end I will do a chapter of the video recapping all of the things that the book explains that the movie doesn't. So if you don't want the mystery spoiled, you can skip that section. If you want to know everything, then you're in luck. I know, I'm so generous, you're welcome. I will be using the fabulous corkboard once again. Having done this once already, I've, of course, upped the production value, and now my corkboard is resting on a big tub of pick and mix. Still only have a Hello Kitty chopstick as a pointer, but if you guys enjoy this and want more of these videos, I may just invest in something more appropriate. There's an incentive for you. Like, comment, and subscribe. Strap in, get yourselves a lovely hot cup of tea. This is going to be a long and weird one. Although I will say, I just watched Ari Aster's latest movie. You haven't seen Out There until you've seen Beau is Afraid. Without further ado, let's get started. This is a long movie. Very quickly, I think it helps us highlight how inspired this film is to recap what was happening at the time of production. 1964, the Ranger 7 sends close-up pictures of the moon back to Earth. 1965, a Russian astronaut becomes the first man to walk in space, and a couple of months later, an American astronaut does it for slightly longer. America! Shortly after that, the Mariner 4 comes within 6,200 miles of Mars and sends 22 photos of the planet's surface back to Earth. Fun fact, Kubrick then contacted insurers in London to price a policy on the possibility of Martians being revealed to exist before the film comes out. Just in case. 1966, the first soft landing on the moon by an unmanned Russian craft. And then a couple of months later, an American craft, the Surveyor 1, does the same thing. America! December 1968, just after the film's release. Apollo 8 carries a man into orbit for the first time. And July 1969, Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong become the first men to walk on the moon. To call this film a timely release is a vast understatement. Everybody is looking to the sky, imagining man's future among the stars, wondering how planting feet on the moon might change everything. Let's begin. Black screen. The film begins with the opening of Richard Strauss's epic Also sprach Zarathustra, which I am surely mispronouncing. It's momentous. It fills you with determination. Guys, I saw 2001 at the BFI and I welled up at this opening. When you see this, when you hear this, you know something fucking great is coming. And then, fade in on a beautiful sunrise. It's the dawn of man. The sun rises over a still and quiet planet Earth 4 million years ago. The whole place is a bit more deserty than it is now. It's a bit dusty, yeah? We join a tribe of ancient human-ape ancestors. For the purposes of my own enjoyment, I'm going to refer to them incorrectly as monkey men from now on. The monkey men, who are definitely not regular humans in dodgy ape suits. Don't at me, okay? It was 1968. They spend their days foraging for food, trying not to get eaten by big cats, and yelling at their neighbouring tribe. Honestly, how much has changed? Okay, look, the monkey men are really silly. Probably the worst aged part of this film. Just stick with me. So much of the future sight in this film, particularly in the writing, and the space shots hold up phenomenally well. The monkey men are probably the most out-of-date looking thing in the whole film. It's kind of a shame we see them first. A new day dawns on our tribe of monkey men, and today, for the first time in a long time, something has changed. A tall, perfectly black monolith has plonked itself down in the rock right where the monkey men live. Eventually, the monkey men build up the courage to poke, prod, and lick the thing, but nothing happens. Oh well. The music that introduces the monolith and that plays every time we see a monolith in this film is Ligeti's Requiem. It was actually one of the few contemporary pieces for the movie that was actually composed in the 60s, and the way this intense, discordant music cuts off abruptly as soon as we cut from something unusual and spacey to the mundane is just so good. Events here are somewhat different and slightly more explicit in the book, so tune in later if you want to know more goss. Cut to later in the day, and it still seems like nothing has happened. The monkey men are going about their monkey business as usual, hopping around, being vaguely rubbish, until one of the monkey men starts playing with the bones littered around them. Now, the film doesn't explicitly single out the tribe leader, but for my personal enjoyment, I'm going to assume this is him. And fun book fact, his name is Moonwatcher. Is that a tasty little bit of foreshadowing? It just might be. Moonwatcher is like, bone smash? And he starts whapping the thing around as Also sprach Zarathustra builds up once more. Finally, the monkey men can hunt big game. Up until now, they've been subsiding on mostly berries. And Moonwatcher's tribe goes from fighting off starvation to thriving. The book takes a bit of time to establish them getting stronger and healthier, their coats getting more luscious. You get the idea. The monkey men are back shouting at their local tribe, but this time, our boys have weapons, and it is a slaughter. They actually managed to kill a rival tribe member. And remember, at this time, they don't have the teeth, the claws, they don't have the inbuilt strength to do that kind of damage, so this is a whole new thing. The rest of the rival tribe scarper off quick sharp because, oh my god, Moonwatcher, probably, that's just my headcanon, celebrates the moment in which the destiny of man is forever changed by throwing his bone club into the air. Match cut! The bone club is replaced by a satellite, and we are now in the year 2001, looking down on Earth. Johann Strauss's famous waltz, The Blue Danube, plays, as we watch a Pan America space plane. Can you see that? Is it too shiny? Yeah, you can see that good enough. As we watch a Pan America space plane approach the round, spinny boy that is Space Station 5. Not very interesting name, America. Having a snooze on the plane is Dr. Heywood Floyd, our protagonist for this segment. He is the chairman of the National Council of Aeronautics, right? Yes. And all around nice guy. His main character trait is being nice and courteous, even if he's busy or he doesn't wanna. A space air hostess in an inflatable turban comes to check that Floyd is okay, and he enjoys a peaceful ride while we jam out to classical music and watch the plane dock with Space Station 5. Getting across scale in space is ridiculously hard to get right, but man does this movie do an excellent job. Magnifique! Dr. Floyd very courteously exits a giant round elevator staffed by a hostess in exquisite Barbie pink and checks into the station. I love this pink uniform. Would that be a really weird cosplay? A Mr. Miller comes to collect Floyd, and he signs in via the, okay, slightly anachronistic space airport security system. It uses voice recognition in the same way automated phone lines do. It's kind of fun. Floyd is hungry for breakfast, so they make their way through the lounge. Mr. Miller has reserved Floyd a table. We're just getting all these hints that he's a very important man, but oh my god, the chairs! The chairs, guys! The future is pink and uncomfortable. Floyd stops by the picture phone, which is basically a private phone booth for video calls, and he rings home. He speaks to his daughter, who I decided to include just because this bit is so ridiculous. He calls her Squirt, which is pretty cute, and he speaks to her for ages, trying to get out of her what she wants for her birthday, because he's gonna miss her birthday party. Again, he's travelling for a very important reason. He's a lovely man, he's a family man, but he can't be there, so whatever's going on in space is serious. Oh! I'm gonna have to find something that isn't a big tub of pick and mix to prop this up in future. He's like, what do you want for your birthday? And she's like, I don't know. And he's like, come on, what do you want for your birthday? And she's like, a bush baby.
I want a squirrel!
Fun fact, they filmed a scene in which Heywood Floyd does in fact order her a bush baby. But they cut that, because why would that be in the film? On his way back from the phone booth, Heywood bumps into his Russian scientist friends. I will say this is much funnier in the book. The film doesn't really go for comedy, so it probably works better this way. In the book, Heywood spots his friend from the phone booth and tries to hide in there. It's top. Anyway, Heywood tells his friends he's off to Clavius, the moon base. I probably didn't need to include a moon on here. You probably know what the moon is, but it's important, okay? The locations in this movie are space, moon, and Jupiter. So I put the moon and Jupiter up there, and you're just gonna have to deal with it. One of the Russian scientists politely asks Floyd if he could clear up what's going on with the moon base. And Heywood is like, I don't even know what you're saying right now. Apparently for the last 2 weeks, the American moon base cannot be reached by phone. And what's more, 2 days ago, a Russian craft was denied an emergency landing at Clavius Base. In fact, the Russians have sneaky intelligence reports suggesting that an epidemic has broken out at Clavius Base. Heywood is like, bitch, you know I can't tell you anything. Breakfast is calling, I'll see you later. Back to the waltz music, and Heywood is off to the moon on an adorable little craft. A space hostess comes by with pouches of astronaut food, and here is a fun but silly fact. In the book, they allege that any food can be eaten in space, provided it has a sufficiently sticky sauce to ground it to the tray. So they have like steak dinners and stuff. We get to see a space hostess Velcro walk in a circle. This is a moving set plus a moving camera, which is a technique you will see a few times in this film, not actually developed for this film, so common misconception. She's very slowly coming to bring some happy pilots their dinners. They must have been real hungry. We see a pilot come chat to Heywood, and this plus all of the empty seats along with the mysterious conversation around Clavius Base earlier, it's all selling us on the seriousness of whatever is going on at Clavius. Plus the importance of Heywood as a super smart government official. In the book, Heywood actually considers the amount of money, the millions of dollars it's costing to fly him alone to Clavius Base, and how he'll be out of a job if he isn't successful on the moon. But also in the book, he doesn't really care. He's a chilled out kind of guy. We see Heywood reminding himself of the instructions for the zero-gravity toilet, and the less said about that, the better. The shuttle lands at the moon base, and Heywood is in attendance at a very important space base meeting. Space base meeting. I'm sorry, I just found that fun to say, so I said it again. Hayward is introduced and he steps up and offers some words of encouragement from a Dr. Howell. In the book, he's actually bringing words of encouragement from the president, so kind of a step down for Hayward here. And he offers them congratulations on their very significant discovery. He then confirms that the epidemic story is an intentional cover-up, and he reminds the base workers that secrecy is of the utmost importance in the present situation due to the risk of cultural shock. What could they have found? Floyd sits down to finally be briefed on the situation, and we cut to a cute little moon buggy doodah travelling to the site of interest on the moon. Hayward and a couple of space pals sit down for some sandwiches and share satellite photos of their discovery, TMA-1 indicating a strong magnetic field. I don't think the movie ever says this, but TMA-1 stands for Tycho Magnetic Anomaly 1. Tycho because they discovered it in the Tycho crater. That's the largest crater on the moon. Yet so many fun space facts in this movie. It just makes me happy. At first they thought it might be the top of a structure, but they excavated the whole site and didn't find anything else. And what's more, TMA-1 doesn't seem to have been naturally covered by erosion. Rather, it looks to have been deliberately buried. The only thing they know for certain is that it was buried around 4 million years ago. The buggy lands, and as Requiem builds up once more, BAM! Monolith on the moon, baby! For more monolith facts, tune into the book section later. The men observe in awe this black pillar surrounded by their lights and surveying equipment. In a move echoing the monkey men of millions of years prior, Hayward gently strokes the structure. Deep down inside, we are all monkey men. The boys go to take a photo, and in the book, Hayward is like, I really hope you can see me through my helmet in the photo, this is so cool. He's adorable, I love him. They go to take a photo, but they are stopped by a sudden piercing, screeching noise emanating from the monolith. It's like that sound they play in shopping centres to stop teenagers from congregating, but even worse. Black. Jupiter mission. 18 months later. Spacecraft, waltz music, you know the drill by now. We see an astronaut jogging around a circular room, the command centre of the US spacecraft Discovery. I'm sure circular is the wrong word, but I don't know the right one, and someone in the comments will correct me anyway. This is the same sort of camera trick as earlier, if you were wondering, moving set plus moving camera. We join two astronauts having their tea together during the crossover of their ships. Ships? Shifts. Space is so confusing. We join two astronauts having their tea together at the crossover of their shifts. These are Dave Bowman and Frank Poole. They're watching a BBC 12 interview, lol, BBC 12, which they had earlier filmed on what is certainly an iPad. I mean, look at this. It's so funny how Clark and Kubrick so almost hit the nail on the head of portable technology, but just missed the mark enough to make it seem old-fashioned. They have touch-activated slim screens that can access data from anywhere, but only news. Near the beginning of the book, Hayward is basically tapping on an iPad on his little space plane, and he's like, it's amazing, it can get information from all over Earth, but only from newspapers. It's just digitized newspapers. It's cute. Anyway, the interview introduces the full team of 5 astronauts, the other 3, aside from Frank and Dave, being currently in hibernation. Those guys are the survey team, and they won't be needed until we get closer to Jupiter. So they're snoozing to preserve food and life support and all that junk. The interview also introduces the 6th member of the crew, probably the most famous character in the whole of this movie, Hal 9000, colloquially known as Hal. Hal is voiced by Douglas Rain, and oh my goodness, what a voice. Absolutely iconic. Perfect for this character, you don't even understand. We learn that the HAL machines, for this is not the only 9000 unit in existence, they achieved artificial intelligence by essentially mimicking the human brain. For all intents and purposes, HAL is a young human astronaut, only much faster and more efficient. One of the things that struck me in the book, especially after reading a lot of Asimov stories, is that there's no human protection in place. I'm so used to Isaac Asimov's laws of robotics, and that being applied elsewhere in science fiction, that I stumbled aghast realising that there's no such thing in the Space Odyssey universe. Essentially, we trust Hal to do the right thing the same way we trust a well-trained human astronaut to do the right thing. And as the interviewer points out, Hal has primary control over the ship and is responsible for looking after the hibernating men. In response to a question about it, Dave points out that Hal certainly appears to have genuine human emotions, but that is how he was programmed to come across. As to whether he truly experiences those emotions, no one could say for sure. Frank gets a lovely birthday message from his parents while Hal adjusts his chair for him like a doting housewife. They then play chess, and Hal wins. Fun book fact, Hal is programmed to win games only 50% of the time for morale reasons, and the crew knows that, but pretends not to. Which is just silly cute. Humans are so funny. The lads swap shifts, and now Dave is on the scene. He shows Hal some beautiful sketches he's been doing of the hibernating crew. We see this display of artwork from Hal's perspective, and if anyone is questioning whether or not Hal experiences genuine emotions, this is the film telling you yes by allowing you, the viewer, to actually experience them. Beautiful. He loves the drawings. Hal questions Dave on his dedication to the mission, given the strange circumstances of it. For example, the rumours of something being dug up on the moon before they left, the secrecy of their preparations. He can't put it all out of his mind. Hal even refers to the crew members being put into hibernation as melodramatic. Dave is like, aha, you're working on the crew psychology report. And Hal's like, oh, you got me. Sorry about this, man. Hang on a second. All of a sudden, Hal picks up a fault in the AE-35 unit, which is a bit of the ship that makes satellite communication with Earth happen. Don't ask me any more than that, I don't know. Hal says they have 72 hours before the part faults. So Dave and Frank set about fixing the problem. They let Mission Control know about the problem, and Frank gets in a little space pod thing with grabby arms, the EVA pod, while Dave monitors from Discovery. This little grabby goober is so cute, but it is also so claustrophobic, and the sound design really hammers that in. We can basically just hear Frank's breathing with a lot of close-ups on his face and nothing else. Frank does a little space swim, grabs the AE-35. Hal is helping him by rotating the pod to shine the light where he needs to see. He brings it back to the ship. Back on Discovery, Frank and Dave are putting the AE-35 unit through its paces, but they simply cannot locate the fault. Hal is equally puzzled, so he recommends putting the unit back and letting it fail, making it much easier to determine the cause. Frank and Dave ring up Mission Control and let them know what's going down, and Mission Control says cool, no problem, but our 9000 unit here at base disagrees with your one and says Hal is in error predicting the fault. Awkward. Hal reassures the guys that there's never been a computing error in a 9000 unit. They have a flawless operation record, and honestly, I wouldn't even worry about it, dudes. Dave's like, that's cool then, man, thanks, Hal. Hey, Frank, I've got a problem with my pod schmoodle. Would you come and take a look with me? Dave and Frank slip into the only place aboard Discovery where a private conversation is possible, which is in itself deeply suspicious. I would have maybe written something down and pretended I was showing Frank a drawing. I don't know, they get in a pod. Side note, I love their Power Rangers-esque spacesuits with the bright colours. Like, do you get to Bagsy a colour, or is it like Star Trek where they're colour-coded based on what your job is? They're so neat. I want the yellow one. They turn the pod back to face the ship so that Hal can see them. Why? And then switch off communications so they can speak unheard. Frank has a bad feeling about this.
I got a bad feeling about this.
He just gets a bad vibe, like something is going on with Hal. Still, neither of them can think of a reason not to put the unit back and see if it fails, like Hal suggested. They discuss what would happen if the unit doesn't fail, and Hal has proven to be mistaken. Since Hal has control over the entire ship, Frank and Dave agree that if Hal is wrong, they'll have no choice but to disconnect him. Dave is such an important character. He is so intelligent and collected, and the way he deals with things is phenomenal. Dave turns and looks at Hal's pod bay camera while he talks about hypothetically turning off Hal's higher brain functions. Dave! Come on, man! Cut to Hal's perspective, blatantly, obviously, reading the lips of Dave and Frank. Why did they rotate the pod? While they talk about how a 9000 unit has never been disconnected, and how Hal might feel about that. Intermission! Now that you've taken a moment to process everything that's happened over the last 3 million years, Frank is back in his pod, heading out to replace the AE-35 unit. This time he's wearing the yellow suit, so that answers that question. You can wear whatever colour you want. Frank hops out into space and the pod rotates towards him, as before, to shine a light where he needs to see. But this time, the pod starts moving forward of its own accord, evidently controlled by a rogue Hal, and it does not stop. And there goes Frank. Bye, buddy. Frank's dead and lost to space. We'll certainly never hear from him again in this series. I love, love, love the editing in this bit. The way everything happens so quickly without you even seeing what happens, having to just register a disappearing Frank body is a brilliant way to show what Dave is experiencing right now. However, if you do want to know exactly what happened, come back to the book section. Events are slightly different, but you'll get it, it's fine. Dave has not realised what's going on and or is in shock. It's clear from what he saw that Frank is gone, but he is in work mode and determined to take out his own pod and grab Frank. I suddenly was filled with such a strong need to point that I didn't even grab my pointer and I pointed with my finger for the first time. What is this for if not pointing? Dave asks Hal what happened and Hal is like, I'm sorry, man, I don't even know, I was looking the other way, I was getting a cup of tea, I wasn't there when it happened. And Dave is just too shook to process how fucking sus that is, and he goes out after Frank. Dave manages to scoop up Frank's cartwheeling body and tries to take him back to the ship. Meanwhile, Hal is alone in charge of Discovery with the hibernating crew, and I think you can guess what happens. Dave, sweet, innocent, so smart in all other circumstances Dave, is outside with Frank's body and asks Hal to open the pod bay doors. He even says please. Hal doesn't respond to Dave for a really long time, and when he does, he's not very helpful. Relatively few lines of dialogue are memorable in this film, but undoubtedly this is one of the most iconic moments in sci-fi. Open the pod bay doors, Hal. I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that. So good! Hal is like, sorry, Dave, the jig is up. I know you and Frank were talking about disconnecting me, and our mission is too important for that. And we and Dave still have no idea what the fuck he's talking about, because as far as we're concerned, the mission is to go and scan Jupiter. Dave finally snaps out of his shock and goes into fucking badass mode. I love Dave so much. This is the man you want around in a crisis. This is why he's here. He's like, okay, Hal, you won't let me in the pod bay. I'm going in through the emergency airlock. Unfortunately, as Hal reminds Dave, he's forgotten his helmet. Of all the fucking days to leave it behind. Dave's like, I'm done arguing with you, little man. Open them doors. And Hal pieces out. But Dave is our hero and he doesn't give up for shit, so he gets himself over to the emergency airlock. He tragically has to let dead Frank go spinning off into space. Rest in peace, sweet Yellow Ranger. Dave opens the airlock door and gets his pod as close as he possibly can. This is so intense. He knows without his helmet he'll have about 15 seconds before he passes out and it's game over. Dave fires himself into Discovery, gets the door closed, and repressurizes, and he's fucking made it! Eat dicks, Hal! Dave is unstoppable! I'm sorry, Hal. I love you. I do love Hal. He has just murdered 4 people. I shouldn't laugh at that. The complete silence of the airlock as Dave frantically gets the door closed. Oh, it's terrifying. Beautifully done. Dave, now with helmet, I never thought of mixing up the colours before. How fun! He's making his way through the ship and causing Hal to sweat a little. Metaphorically, obviously. Lucky Hal. Hal's reasoning, he's bargaining, he's begging, but Dave will not be moved. He is going for Hal's brain.
I'm afraid, Dave.
This part's always upset me. Hal is essentially a child. He functions by mimicking the human brain. No one, including Hal, knows what disconnecting him means. Is it like sleep? Will he lose his memories? Is it death? Poor Hal! I'm sorry about when I told you to eat dicks earlier. As Dave removes parts of Hal's brain, Hal begins to slow down. 10 out of 10 reaction here from Dave, by the way. For such a weird film in like a hard sci-fi, this is such a powerfully emotional scene that it makes me well up a little bit just talking about it. My mind is going. I can feel it. I can feel it. Hal seems to have forgotten his time aboard Discovery and introduces himself. Finally, he sings Dave a song that he learned from his teacher when he was a fresh young machine as he powers down.
It won't be a stylish marriage.
Don't talk to me right now, okay? Dave doesn't have 2 seconds to mourn the crew he's just lost before a pre-recorded message starts playing.
Now that you are in Jupiter's space, and the entire crew is revived.
Awkward. Mission Control explains that TMA-1, the moon discovery, if you remember that far back, has been completely inert, save for one powerful radio emission aimed at Jupiter. Welcome to the real mission, Dave. Yes, it seems that for security purposes, it was decided that Dave and Frank would be kept in the dark about Discovery's true mission, but Hal already knew and was required to keep it secret from them. So they basically told a kid to keep their first ever secret, a really important secret, and the conflict Hal experienced over it caused a psychosis. That's book canon, by the way, I'm not making that up. They replicated that psychosis in other 9,000 machines, and they had to go through therapy. Good news, everyone! We made it to Jupiter. Well, I say we. It's just Dave now. Damned if he's not going to finish the mission all on his own. Floating around in space by Jupiter, to no one's great surprise, is another monolith. This is a terrible fucking photo. I know this doesn't really show you anything. There is a monolith there floating in space. It's dark, and it's, in theory, according to the book, a perfectly black shape that very, very barely even reflects light because it's such a strong black, so there's no better way for me to show you this, really. Dave takes an EVA pod out of Discovery one final time and makes his way to the monolith. Note, in the movie, this is a gorgeous bit of orchestral spookiness. In the book, Dave's still doing all his due diligence astronaut stuff. He's still reporting back to Mission Control. Plus, the next bit gets very abstract, but there are explanations in the book, so again, see you later if you want to understand this more. I will give you Dave's final recorded message as he enters the monolith, because it's probably the most iconic line from the book. He says, "My God, it's full of stars!" And that is the last anyone hears from Dave Bowman. Right? You tell me, there's 3 sequels. Here comes the acid trip segment that you're probably familiar with. Dave goes to make contact with the monolith and finds himself inside a Microsoft Music visualizer. Stars and planets and who knows what are whizzing past him at increasingly great speed while he's like... Which, fair enough. Some reason when it goes all horizontal like this, it makes me think of Blade Runner. Dave is seeing stars implode, galaxies speed by, and whatever all this stuff is. He's joined briefly by a series of, what are those, octahedrons? But then they're gone, so don't worry about it. Now he's flying over the landscape of a planet, ? And honestly, it's easiest to just shut your mind off to questions and enjoy the weird colours here. This goes on for a few minutes. Suddenly, the pod has landed. Inside a hotel room. Dave is pretty literally shaken up by this experience and spends a moment jittering in the pod. Oh, and there's him as an old man watching himself. Dave, now the old man that he just saw, takes a look around and is like, "Yep, it's a fancy hotel room, there's not much else to say about it." Oh, and there he is as a much older man having his tea. Listen, this is not an easy bit of film to commentate. If you want answers, meet me in the book section. Right now I'm just calling it like I see it, and Dave is now an elderly man who has kind of a Hugh Hefner vibe in this robe. Now Dave is super old and all tucked up in his hotel bed. He's got just enough energy left to lift his hand and point at the monolith at the end of his bed, watching him sleep. And he's a baby. Dave is now a big baby in a magic space bubble. Were you confused? Keep up. We zoom in on the monolith and find Space Baby Bubble Dave back at Earth just having a look. And that's it. That's the film. Okay, the last 20 minutes throw a lot of shit at you with no explanation, so I ask you to remember the experience as a whole while you process your thoughts. Now I'm going to give you all the secret revelations and explanations from the bits of the movie that leave you going, what the fuck? Thanks to the book. So skip ahead if you don't give a fuck. Hi, loves. Let's take it all the way back to the dawn of man. The book actually gives us the monolith's perspective a few times throughout the books, which is very eye-opening. While visually in the film nothing happens when the monkey men lick the monolith and so on, in the book they are routinely captivated each night. The monolith is covered in shiny geometric shapes and lines as it shapes the monkey men brains in an attempt to teach them. Various monkey men in turn try different stuff out, like hitting rocks with sticks and so on. Some of them get it right, some of them are kind of stupid, some of them take longer. It takes a few nights for it to really click, and when it does click and they perform these actions in their daily lives, they do so almost in a trance, following some desire outside of their own minds, but that leads them to discover fire and shit like that. The book also suggests that this monolith is one of many that have been scattered all over Earth to attempt this experiment with various different species. The implication being that the experiment was only successful with the monkey men. Then the monoliths all disappear. Also, this isn't that important, but I think it's actually cooler in the book. Moonwatcher does not kill a rival tribe member. Moonwatcher actually manages to take on a big cat that is threatening them, which is huge because that is their number one predator. That is the main cause of this tribe's demise and all monkey men's demise. And he kills it and he mounts its head on a stick So when they next face the rival tribe, he comes up with the head of their enemy on a stick and uses that to beat them. So the enemy tribe is like, our biggest predator is dead and still hurting us. What the fuck? Run away. And I just think that is so cool. It's so gruesome and such a grisly display of power. It's so cool. But you have to really set up how much of a terrifying predator the big cats are for that to work, so I understand the way the film does it. On the moon, 4 million years later. It is not all as simple and easy as in the film, where the monolith just happens to activate when Hayward swans up to it. In the books, the monoliths are all protected by a little force field. Scientists couldn't find any means to penetrate it until they went, fuck it, and hit it with nukes. It's all set up such that only a species that has left their planet's orbit and landed on their satellite, and developed sufficient technology to blast their way through the monolith's protective shield that the radio beam would activate, leading them to Jupiter. There's kind of a weird difference in the film and the book to do with Hayward, where in the film he speaks to his daughter on the video phone and he asks how mummy is, etc. In the book, his wife is dead. I can understand why they decided not to do that for the film. I'm not really sure why that is the case in the book. There's kind of an ongoing thing with his sort of family connections throughout them, so yeah, she's dead. There's a lot more discussion around the monolith and the fact that these surveys have been going on for all this time, the certainty of the fact that it was deliberately buried, and it was buried designed to last for these millions of years is something that is highlighted in the book. The book also repeats the idea that this is so black that it doesn't really reflect light, which I think is a smart thing not to mention in the film, because you can't really do that. How do you film it without having lights reflect it when you don't actually have... I mean, they didn't have even Vantablack at the time, so what could they do? And then how would you show that in a movie? It makes sense. The magnetic field that it emits is just sort of a map pointer. It's sort of a hello, here I am, for when people have sufficient technology to detect it. And then, yeah, it sits there dormant for ages and ages while they try to punch and blast and coax their way through the force field, which is only then disturbed, finally, by nukes. There's this kind of sadness among the scientists and Floyd in this part of the book, because they know, and they say categorically, this is evidence of intelligent life, other intelligent life in space, but it's 4 million, well, in the book, 3 million years old. There's this sadness that we came so close to touching another intelligent species that has been through our system, but they're so long gone that we'll never know them. They could be extinct by now. On board the Discovery, events are more or less the same, but play out in kind of a different order. When Frank is outputting the AE-35 back, he is actually crushed to death by the pod splatting him into the ship rather than him suffocating. He's already dead in the book when he cartwheels off into space. Poor Frank. And then the pod speeds off into the night, dragging him with it. It's a lot more gruesome in the book. In the early scene between Hal and Dave, where Hal is almost interrogating Dave and revealing that it's for the psychology report, you got me, buddy. I interpret this as Hal, yes, kind of testing Dave to see how dedicated he is, because this mission is so important. That is Hal's main driving thing, is the importance of this mission. It's clearly been drilled in. But I also think this is him struggling with not being able to confide in his crewmates, being torn by having this huge secret. Again, the book states that having these contradictory instructions about looking after the crew and keeping this secret causes a psychosis. The book kind of suggests that Hal didn't really mean to hurt anyone, he didn't want to hurt anyone, this was just the only way he could think of protecting the mission, his main goal, and also protecting himself. Dave shuts down Hal and saves the day in a similar way. Once he's shut down Hal, he gets back in contact with Mission Control, who reveal the real mission to him then, rather than in this pre-recorded message. In the book, the AE-35 really has broken, which is kind of a fabulous and shocking detail, this idea that the truth being that Hal was right all along. There was no error with Hal, he had predicted this correctly, and if it hadn't been for that attempt at a private conversation between Frank and Dave, the mission might have gone ahead smoothly. Hal might not have had that breakdown. Devastating. So the AE-35 really is busted, and the only way that Dave can communicate with Earth is by manually turning the ship so that the satellite points at Earth. So at regular intermissions, he does this to give them updates. He works like a beast and gets the ship back in full working order, all on his own, and he gets Discovery into a steady orbit around Jupiter so it can be recovered in the future, and that is important for the sequel. The Jupiter monolith is definitely different in the book than the film. For a start, it's not like the same monolith we've already seen, but floating in space. It's actually on Jupiter. The monolith from Earth, the monolith on the moon, the monolith on Jupiter, they all have this perfect ratio of 1 to 4 to 9, which humankind just doesn't have the intelligence yet to understand, or the scope to understand the meaning of that, but they purport that it must have some meaning. So the monolith on Jupiter has the same scale, but much, much bigger. And as Dave pops in, my god, it's full of stars. Dave is seeing space, like so much space, going by him faster and faster. It's much more explicit in the book that he is travelling through space. He deduces that this monolith is essentially an entry point into a massive space highway interchange. He even flies through what he realises is essentially a giant car park for all different kinds of spacecraft. But again, to rebuild that kind of sense of tragedy and loss, it's completely deserted. Anyone who had used it in the past is long, long gone. He is also considerably more calm in the book because he kind of rationalises that his pod is being directed on a specific course. And he knows, because he's an astronaut, that he would be dead from the pressure. He would be spaghettified. Spaghettified! He'd be spaghettified, mate. He'd be spaghettified. The temperature would have destroyed him. He knows he's being protected and led on a specific course, so he just kind of relaxes and enjoys the ride. He's more concerned about being potentially an ambassador for the human race, because he might be on course to meet an alien species, a highly intelligent alien species. Same as in the movie, Dave ends up in a very fancy-looking hotel room. He really takes his time in the book. It's much less wacky, time-shifty. He's quite meticulous in testing things. He makes sure to come out in his spacesuit first before he's confident. He actually feels kind of silly in the book because he knows he's being protected. He's like, I hope I haven't just failed a test by wearing my helmet before he takes it off. His explorations of the hotel room lead him to believe that this is all here for his comfort. Everything is kind of a facade. Unlike the film, he doesn't have a nice roast dinner. He finds that there are cereal boxes and so on with names of famous brands from a certain point in time, but the food and liquid within is all just this blue meal replacement substance. In the book, Dave doesn't chase himself around the room getting older at each turn. He just looks around, he has a nice meal, feels better, and then is very sleepy. He reasons again that he's been being kept safe this whole time, so there's no harm in having a little sleepy. He's an eepy boy! So, for the last time, David Bowman slept. Absolutely iconic line from the book, once again. While he's asleep, he remains near consciousness. Again, in the film, he's suddenly a space baby. In the book, he enters this sort of dreamlike state. He remains near consciousness and has this strange experience where he goes backwards through his life, like he's revisiting all his old memories until he's a space baby. He himself acknowledges during this winding back of his memories that nothing is being lost, rather it's being stored safely for all time. The book comes from the perspective of the alien species a couple of times, never explicitly. We don't know much about them. We just get a little hint of their perspective now and then. They went from being able to do crazy space travel to being able to remove their consciousness from physical forms, and they essentially were spaceships for a while, until they could exist without those forms as well, and just exist as thoughts almost beyond matter, and they sort of save their thoughts within the folds of space. It's pretty crazy, but kind of cool. So that's what we assume is happening now to Dave Bowman. He's a big space baby, but he's just Dave plus. In the book, we get a bonus monolith. A new monolith appears and begins shaping baby Dave's new mind, just as it did to his ancestors 4 million years earlier. But this time it's quick and easy and super successful because the monolith's programmers evolved so much in between the two times. Dave Baby's new instincts have taught him, although he's not conscious of how, because he is a baby, to traverse the vast gulf of space in a moment, and he transports himself back to Earth. In the book, he notices that there are a lot of weapons of mass destruction in the atmosphere looking at him, and he blows them up casually with his mind powers while thinking about what to do next. And that's the end of 2001, A Space Odyssey. Wow, that was a lot. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you have a lot of thoughts. Please leave your comments down below. Was this a helpful recap? Did you find this informative and fun? Would you like to see more of these? And if you would, what would you like to see? Maybe you want to hear about the sequel. 2010. Space Odyssey continues? The Odyssey continues? Odyssey continues. It's just called Odyssey 2. Anyway, let me know. I love doing this. I have so much fun. When I love a film or something, or I'm just really interested in a certain topic and I kind of hyper-focus on it, I learn all these facts. I love laying this out, doing this research, putting it all together in this kind of meticulous way and just going a little crazy, having fun with it. I find this really, really awesome, so if you enjoy it, please let me know and I will do more. I'm desperate to talk about this documentary I watched a while ago called For the Love of God, because I thought it was stupid and bad. It's about the Australian guy who thinks he's Jesus and the cult that he's kind of built around that. So I may very well soon do a video on that, because all I've done so far is a tweet rant. Sorry, an X rant. If you do enjoy the things I make and you would like to support this channel, the best way to do that is via the Patreon. You can get some exclusive videos, we do a monthly hangout, there's all kinds of stuff going on, please check it out. You can also become a channel member right here. You get some silly little emotes and comment priority. If you're not sick to death of me, I would absolutely love if you would consider checking out Backstage with Emma Thorne, where I post more casual vloggy style stuff, just vibes. I open my PO Box mail over there. I'm really excited to show off my fan art wall that I have just put up. It's so cool. It makes me so happy. You don't even understand. So go and subscribe to that channel so you don't miss it. If you enjoy gaming comment, you can come and hang out on Little Duck Gaming. If you like live gaming comment, you can follow me on Twitch, where we hang out and chat and everybody bullies me because I am bad at video games. And that's at Emma Little Duck. I think that is officially everything plugged that I have to plug. So, cheers. I love you. I've made like 200 videos, I still don't know how to end them. Thank you so much for watching. Before we go, oh my gosh, can you believe I almost forgot? I would like to give a giant shout out and a thank you, aka a shank you, to my giant chickens and colossal quackers over on Patreon. Thank you so much again for watching. Most importantly, have yourselves a very lovely week, and I will see you really soon.